Welcome to Shovel Talk, a podcast for economic developers. From your friends at the Golden Shovel Agency.
Welcome back, Shovelheads. Darren Varley here with another episode of Shovel Talk. In this episode, BQ sits down with Marvin Price, Greensboro, North Carolina Chamber of Commerce, to discuss a megasite success story and how economic development is a long game. Sometimes successes can take up to 10 years, but one that must be played. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone. This is Bethany Quinn, president of Golden Shovel, and I am so excited to interview my guest today. Marvin Price is the executive vice president of the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce, and we're going to have a really great discussion on some of the exciting things that are happening in their community and just the economic development industry as a whole right now, which is in such an interesting place. So, Marvin, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me, Bethany. I'm really excited about this interview.
Yeah, me too. For those who don't know, Marvin, you won a pretty prestigious award. I think it was about 2 years ago, Economic Developer of the Year. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I've been fortunate enough to be selected for a few different awards. I've been selected twice for DCI's 40 Under 40, the State of North Carolina Economic Developer of the Year, and Consultant Connect. I have now won 3 different times as one of the top 50 economic developers in the world.
That's exciting.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
I am truly blessed. Someone told me one day that you pick great cities to go work for, and I would say I'm pretty good at picking a good city.
Yeah, absolutely. The community and the support you get for your work is definitely important.
Absolutely, without question.
So I have a few statistics about you, and maybe they're wildly inaccurate. If they are, you got to correct the record here. But it looks like you have attracted over $4.7 billion in investment in your career. That's staggering.
Well, I would dare say I would have to correct that.
Okay.
In just the last 4 years in Greensboro, we have announced over $16 billion in capital investment and 10,000 jobs. If you were to look at the total career that I've had, it would probably be around anywhere between 17 to 18 billion dollars in capital investment and maybe roughly anywhere between 15 to 16,000 net new jobs. So again, truly blessed.
Yeah, no, and that's actually a good way to correct the record, right? We went up, not down. And I wanted to put that out there at the very beginning of our conversation because a lot of people that listen to our podcast are newer in the industry. Of course, we have people that have been here for a long time, but a lot of young executive directors tell us that, hey, we listen to your podcast and we read your resources. It's an educational tool. So I want you guys, if you're listening, to situate this conversation as coming from someone who does have a lot of proven success. And I think that we can learn from you and, of course, learn from each other, right? What works in one community can inspire us to put together programs that will work somewhere else as well. So thank you for sharing that. Now, I do want to get into some of your recent successes, and hopefully you can explain more to our listeners as maybe what's positively contributed to that. So let's talk about your megasite, for example, and Toyota coming in. What did you have to do to prepare for those attraction efforts?
So I find that very interesting. Everyone talks about the Toyota project as a opportunity that happened overnight, right? Just you pay attention to the announcement, perhaps, but people don't understand that this was a 10-year overnight success. So before I was ever here, when I was still in college, this community was getting together and determining that we want to make a splash in economic development, that we want an automotive manufacturer. So through the Bryant Foundation, through the North Carolina Railroad, through the Greensboro Chamber, through Randolph County, working collaboratively to find a site, right? To really understand what you need, a site and an opportunity. And that's something that we found with the Greensboro Randolph megasite. where Toyota looked at our community once before. And unfortunately, they decided to go to Huntsville for the Toyota Mazda project. Well, we didn't rest and, took our tails and run and just say, well, woe is me. Well, no, we continue to revise the site, make sure due diligence was done. All of the things that gave the community, not the community, but the company pause, the consultants pause in the beginning of that first project, we made sure that it wasn't going to be a problem on the second project. So in the second project, we were able to overcome some of those hurdles. And I think that's a testament to this community. I think it's a testament to regionalism and collaboration. And I think it also says, don't give up. When you have a vision and a dream for your community, it can come to fruition when you're steadfast and you're focused. Because, case in point, our elected officials at any given time in Randolph County could have decided to, you know what, we're going to subdivide this. We're not going to get one big project. Let's subdivide it so we can get maybe 20 or 30 little projects, right? Well, I think if you were to have a conversation with anyone in this community, to have a name and a recognition of Toyota to come to this area, this region, is a stamp of approval. This is their fuel of the future when you're looking at batteries. So the number one brand in the world, not in just in the United States, but in the world, has decided to invest billions of dollars into this community. I think that is a stamp of approval that has trickled or created sound waves across this country that what in the world is going on in the Triad, what's happening in Greensboro.
Well, you said so much there that's really valuable, and I want to unpack it a little bit.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate the overall message that you can't give up, and it's going to take an entire community. It's going to take leadership, but also buy-in and support across every area of the community, from elected officials to the chamber, to your infrastructure and transportation partners, to grant providers, what have you. So that's definitely a takeaway I think people need to remember, because economic development can sometimes feel like a very isolating activity. There are many situations that I run across where economic developers feel like they're having to fight against their own community just for their existence. And it's really hard to achieve big things when you have to fight just to survive. So this is a good podcast maybe to send to your community leaders if you're in that situation, because it does take everyone working together to achieve big things. But I do want to back up a little bit. So you mentioned that this site obviously was put together years ago. Do you know how many years ago, just to situate this for our listeners?
If I'm not mistaken, it goes back to maybe 2011.
Okay.
That they were working to put this site together. Maybe even further back than that.
Okay. So definitely over a decade.
Yes, for sure. This has been, again, that's why I said a 10-year overnight success.
Right.
This community has been looking and cultivating, putting together this parcel of land or these different parcels of land to create the Greensboro Randolph megasite. And again, it doesn't happen overnight, but it also doesn't happen without collaboration and partnership. Randolph County couldn't afford to buy all of that land. So then you bring in the Bryant Foundation, but also they don't have all the money to buy that land. So then you bring in the North Carolina Railroad. So again, that's when you talk about the collaboration and partnership all moving in the same direction. And when you talk about regionalism and a rising tide will float all boats, the property is in Randolph County. Water and sewer is being provided by the city of Greensboro.
Mm-hmm.
That is not in Randolph County. That is unheard of.
Sure.
So to want to run and extend water and sewer to an adjacent county to serve a project that it was a pipe going to nowhere because we didn't have a client. So the city decided to run water and sewer on the premise and the hope that one day we're going to land that automotive manufacturer.
Mhm.
So that's what I mean by that buy-in from the community, because they
Right.
could have canceled that project a long time ago.
Hmm. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And you're right, that is relatively unheard of for you to have a city running water to a county that, it's not their county. Simultaneously, what you said right there, everyone's going to rise together. That's so true, right? Because all those jobs that are being created, that's going to benefit people that live in the city, and that has ripple effects. So I think a lot of times it's creating that vision and getting everyone to understand that it's not about competing against each other, but working together for the benefit of everyone. The other thing I was hoping you could expand more upon is you mentioned that Toyota had considered you before. That didn't go well. Obviously, that would have been a little bit devastating. And there was an opportunity there to maybe say, hey, this site's not gonna, no one's gonna buy this mega site. We should break it up. But you said everyone stayed the course and instead tried to address the concerns that were brought up on that initial site visit. Can you elaborate any more in regards to that collaborative process for how you were able to address those concerns?
Well, I wasn't here during that time, but
Sure.
the just the reference point and understanding of that is the consistent idea that we believe that the parcel was better
Mhm.
whole than subdivided, and to stay the course in the idea of we truly believe that we're right there. And while the project didn't go, and I would change the term that it didn't go well. I don't think it went the way we wanted. We wanted that particular project, but it did go well enough that we showed that as a community and as a region, we had the talent, we had the workforce, that we
Mhm.
had a collaborative different bodies of government from the state of North Carolina all the way down to the city of Greensboro and Randolph County being willing to participate. I think that if I'm a site selection company or I'm a manufacturer looking to locate a facility, one of my biggest concerns is whether or not I'm going to be welcomed, whether or not is the community going to do exactly what they said they were going to do. So
Sure.
to be turned down for an opportunity and to consistently have check-ins, because it didn't stop. So we were consistently looking for other large automotive manufacturers. We
Mhm.
flew a helicopter over the Tesla facility saying, hey, you should consider the Greensboro Randolph megasite, right? We were traveling to different trade shows to make sure that other manufacturers knew that this was a location. And we were
Mhm.
also checking in with those site selection consultants, letting them know, like, hey, we got another phase 1 study done on this piece of property. Hey, we've added this new acreage. We've done this. We've added that. We've extended utilities to make sure that we kept them abreast of what we were doing as a community for this potential site. So I think, again, it goes to show that you don't stop moving forward. And
Mhm.
the only way that you devour that elephant, if you will, is one bite at a time.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. That good old analogy, if nobody knows the elephant one. So the other thing that's interesting to me is that, I guess in some ways, Greensboro, you've had the success, right? You kind of have this opportunity where you could say, all right, we've landed the big fish in batteries and automotive. We're just going to make that our singular niche. But I know that's not what you're doing. So you also have been focusing on creating an aerospace hub. So you've had
Yeah,
these simultaneous efforts happening, which is a big lift. Can you talk about that more?
yeah, no, absolutely. What's interesting is that we announced Toyota in December of what is that, 2021, and then in January of 2022 we announced Boom Supersonic, with the announcement of 1,700 jobs and over 500 million in capital investment. But again, it goes back to having great leadership, because we have a mega site at our airport as well. So for the airport leadership and board of directors to get together and understand that, hey, we want to be ready for that next Boeing or that next Airbus project,
Sure.
right? And to gather that land, to purchase it, to get it permitted, to get it ready to go. Again, how many airports do you know, or how many communities do you know that are willing to take on debt, clear and grade, do
Mhm.
all of the necessary permitting and working with the FAA, which we know is a, a mess of trying to figure out what has to happen. Is it
Sure.
going to be a yes? Is it going to be a no? And the amount of engineering work that goes into any airport project, right?
Mhm.
And to know that our community was doing that with no project in mind, right?
Wow.
Just knowing that these are potential projects that we can compete for. Because what most economic developers need to understand, and Jay Gardner has coined this phrase, no product, no project. And if you
Right.
don't have the product, when you get a phone call right now, a lot of these projects are saying, I need to be operational in anywhere between 12 to 18 months.
Sure.
Speed to market, right? So for us to have a location that's ready to go, again, that forethought is ingenious, which
Mhm.
has allowed me to benefit. But again, that Boom Supersonic project is another great example of
Sure.
having that opportunity and being able to showcase. But before you have Boom, you still have HACO, one of the largest MRO facilities in the world, MRO, machine maintenance repair overhaul. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
And also having Honda Jet at the airport as well. So Honda Jet is the single they sell the most jets of that size in
Hmm.
the world. So to have them here in Greensboro again with that name of Honda, that is a clear stamp of approval. But we didn't want to just rest on that. We want more. And now to
Sure.
have the leading candidate of innovation, if you will, for airplanes, Boom Supersonic, and they've already gone supersonic. So we're hoping that they're going to have their FAA certification and approval to go into production fairly soon. So one of the things that I'm focused on in my role is that it would be my life's mission if whenever I leave Greensboro, or if I'm dead and gone and I've stayed in Greensboro my whole entire career, that people consider the Greensboro market as the aerospace hub of the South. I want them to
Wow.
consider us to be the Wichita, Kansas of the South. That's what I want. And we have the land, we have the skill set to make that happen, because you can't just say you want to be good in aerospace.
Sure.
That's a product and skill set that is so meticulous,
Mhm.
it can't malfunction,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
If a plane doesn't work well, you're gonna have a bad day,
Mhm.
right? So to have a skill set or a manufacturing group industry workforce that can do pristine machining to
Mhm.
those standards and to those regulations, I think it's a testament of the training and the skill sets that you can find in Greensboro, in Guilford
Sure.
County. So we've partnered with Guilford Tech Community
Mhm.
College. They're building a new aerospace training facility on their campus right now that's
Mhm.
gonna be dedicated to producing that talent for a Boom Supersonic. But we're not
Sure.
just done with Boom Supersonic. We've recently landed Marshall Aerospace, which
Mhm.
is going to redo the C-130s. And those are massive
Sure.
machines. Honda Jet has already announced the next iteration of their jet. So again, we have all of these pieces that are really coming together to create that hub
Mhm.
already, but we're not done, because we
Sure.
have well over 1,000 acres. So if any site consultants are listening, we have 1,000 acres at the Piedmont Triad International Airport.
Yeah, that's great. And like you said, you have the product and you also have the talent pipeline and the training pipeline so that they're skilled in those areas, which is so critical. Obviously, that's something that we have been seeing at Golden Shovel is this interesting shift over the last, say, 5 years, where economic development used to be more strictly product focused, now you can't just focus on product. If you don't focus on talent recruitment and talent training and advancement for your target industries, it's really hard to make the case, right? So you need the combination of both. And you obviously have invested energy and resources to have both, which is quite compelling. Now, when we talk about investment, you mentioned yourself, acknowledged, right, that it costs a lot of money to get a site like that ready at an airport. It also costs a lot of money for a community college and technical college create a program to train people to work in the aerospace industry. These are not cheap endeavors. So, what are your recommendations for being able to secure the type of funding it requires, really, to pull off something like this?
Well, you can't do anything as an economic developer if you don't have a community that believes.
Mm-hmm.
So I would recommend that if someone was looking to secure funding to help out, you need to make sure the state believes in what you're doing. So your representation that represents your community at the state level, but also at the federal level, any potential grants there, you have to have someone that's going to be a champion when you're not in the room. So they have to believe in it and be just as infectious of and enthusiastic as you would be, right? That dream, that mission of wanting to see growth in this particular sector for your site has to grow legs,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to walk when you're not even there. And that's something that we've seen from our county officials wanting to support Guilford Tech Community College, from the state of North Carolina giving money to the community college. So many different things, right, that plays a role in seeing that level of growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one thing that not every economic developer has is a relationship with their state and then federal elected officials. Sometimes it's just a nature of moving from community to community, right? You might not have those long-standing relationships, but you raise a really good point for the benefits of making that a priority, of establishing those relationships so they can be in the rooms that you're not.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, very interesting. And obviously there's a heavy manufacturing focus that is kind of that thread across your projects. Now, I know that you're also working on some life sciences attraction. Is that on the manufacturing side too, or are you looking more at the science behind R&D or things of that nature?
Well, I want to go for all of it, right?
Okay.
So shameless. If you were to have a conversation with anyone that knows me in the economic development profession in the state of North Carolina, and they said, "What is one thing Marvin won't shut up about?" And that's life sciences coming to the
Okay.
Triad in Greensboro, North Carolina. I feel like our state is so robust with life sciences companies,
Mhm.
where if you just look at the level of talent that we're producing from all of our colleges, right? From North Carolina A&T, from the Dukes, from the Chapel Hills, NC States, UNC Charlotte just was designated a Research One. ECU was just dedicated a Research One. So now our state is going to have 5 Research One universities. So when you're talking about that research and development opportunity, you have colleges not only in Greensboro, but across the state that these companies can partner with, right?
Sure.
But then when you're looking at the manufacturing side of it as well, when you're looking at a lease rate, when you're looking at the cost of labor,
Mhm.
comparatively speaking, a Boston or San Diego, comparatively speaking to us, it just makes sense. And being within an hour's drive of the Research Triangle, it just makes sense. And I love my brothers and sisters in the Research Triangle. I want them to continue to succeed and grow. But eventually, individuals are going to always ask that question: should I go there and have to compete with everyone that's already there, like the Pfizers of the world, the Mercks of the world? Or could I just go right down the road and still attract that same talent? I go to
Sure.
Raleigh and eat dinner often. I've gone to NC State game. right? And still made it home and before it was late. So the great connectivity that we have with I-40 and I-85 allows us to have connectivity across the state of North Carolina. So I believe those companies can come this way. But not only that, we have so many existing companies in our community that we believe that that's a stamp of approval. So, case in point, if you ever use NyQuil, DayQuil, or any kind of quill in the United States, guess where it came from?
I'm
Greensboro,
guessing
North Carolina.
Greensboro.
Yeah, absolutely. Syngenta, which is their crop protection headquarters, is located here in Greensboro, North Carolina, right? And just across the line in Winston-Salem, you have Pro Kidney. So again, the regenerative medicine aspect of it all, there's an opportunity. So when you look at the triad from a Winston-Salem, a Greensboro, or High Point, we believe that we have companies and industries where it makes sense for us to continue to grow in that life sciences sector. So we're making sure that we're waving that flag. We're partnering with the NC Bio Center as well in the state of North Carolina to make sure people are aware of the level of growth that we have, the opportunities that we have, and the talent that we have. And once the word is out, very similar to the word is out with aerospace, I think people are going to wake up and they're going to want to call Greensboro home.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting because, sometimes as a community, if you get a reputation for one particular type of industry, that can be a great thing because you're the first person a site selector is going to call, right? Or at least in their top five. Simultaneously, I think what you're trying to achieve is one of the things that's necessary to create a long-term resilient economy. Just in case the market shifts in any one direction, it really sounds like you're trying to build up three very distinctive industries that are very strong in their own right, but long term, I think provides you with more options, right?
No, absolutely. One of my biggest fears is that, hey, what happens if no one wants to fly anymore, right? What
Mm-hmm.
if flying was just done? Well, now the aerospace industry is hurt. We don't want to be dependent on just any one industry in this community. We want to be diversified. So we want
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that we're looking at aviation and aerospace. We want to make sure that we're tried and true with just general manufacturing. We want to make sure that we're really cutting our teeth and growing the life sciences sector. But we also want the back office operations. We want those regional headquarters. We want the national headquarters. We want to still look at furniture and design and textiles. We want to make sure that we're diversified, but we do want to have some centers of excellence. And I do believe that aerospace, we are a center of excellence. Manufacturing, we are a center of excellence. And I believe that we are growing and will continue to grow as a center of excellence of life sciences. I will be remiss if I didn't talk about Ecolab or Cambrix. I mentioned Procter and Gamble, Syngenta. You have the Joint School of Nanoscience and Nanoengineering with North Carolina A&T State University. So it is so many opportunities. I mean, while it's not in Greensboro, it's in High Point. In High
Mm-hmm.
Point, we're tied at the hip. You have High Point University with their School of Pharmacy. So again, from that life sciences standpoint that they just launched, I think it shows that we I don't want to, we're not a community that we can just say we can do any and everything because our
Mm-hmm.
community doesn't want any and everything. But there are some very real sectors that our community, I would hold us up against or put us up against any other community in this country.
Yeah, that's great. And obviously, again, speaks to collaboration. You even talked about collaboration across adjacent communities, right? And that regional approach. One thing that I do want to ask you about, because it's coming up in every conversation that I'm having with economic developers lately, is what do you think the impact of potential tariffs that the administration is looking at might have on the economic development industry holistically in the United States?
Well, I look at it as let's take a step back, right? It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican. Let's just look at how the administrations operate. You had the Biden administration that looked at, hey, We want more manufacturing in the United States, and we want to do that by incentivizing companies that manufacture overseas to bring that manufacturing to the United States with things like the CHIPS Act, right? Well, let's look at the Trump administration. They're saying the exact same thing. We want more manufacturing in the United States, but they're just going about it a different way. They're saying, hey, we're going to penalize you and tax you more if you don't manufacture in the United States. But the same goal is to have more manufacturing in the United States.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not a fortune teller, so I don't know what exactly is going to happen with that. But by and large, as economic developers, we should always be excited when things are made in America.
So I agree with you 100% in the sense that it is a common goal. It's just the policies and implementation of it look different. But at the end of the day, the trend towards let's bring manufacturing back to America, create those strong middle class jobs, has definitely been a drumbeat that we've heard across political parties. And I think as economic developers, that in a way should be encouraging, right? Because it means that the workforce training efforts that have been put in place collaboratively over the past several years are still going to be needed and beneficial, right? There's not a wild swing in regards to the type of talent we're trying to cultivate, for example.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the things that would make me excited as an economic developer with the potential of new manufacturing coming into this market is it's more chances at bat, right?
Mhm.
So I'm not a baseball guy, but I've heard this analogy watching ESPN is that, hey, if you have a batting average of 300, you're going to the Hall of Fame,
Sure.
right? If you're batting over 300, you're going to the Hall of Fame. If you look at that and you really think about it, that is at the average of how many times you got to swing that bat to get a hit. That's insane. And that's
Mhm.
going to the Hall of Fame. I look at that as economic developers as well. It's the
Sure.
chances at bat. In this opportunity that more companies are coming or are interested in manufacturing or doing business in the United States is going to give your community another chance at bat. So if you are swinging the bat 100 times, if you hit and land a project 3 times out of 100, for some communities, that is life altering.
Right.
And
Yeah,
that's the part
absolutely.
that I sometimes don't think people understand. If you land one project in your community a year, that's somebody is going to be able to provide for their family in a meaningful way that they otherwise would not. That is
Right.
transformational, and that gets me excited to get out of the bed. I know for a fact that if I can get a company to say yes to Greensboro, that's someone's kid that is going to be able to have a great Christmas, right? That's
Mhm.
someone that's going to have a pride of themselves being able to make and produce something, right? Being able to provide for their family. And I think that's exciting.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I think drives most of us that work in this industry is the ability to make those lasting impact on people's lives, on our communities. And you mentioned landing one project a year and in a community like Greensboro, you can support one project a year. A lot of the rural communities that we work with, if they got one project every 3 to 5 years, that's probably all they could be able to support, right? Without having a talent shortage that negatively impacts their other businesses. And that's
Yeah.
actually even more encouraging. It means that, it's okay if it does take you years to put that site together, to market it, and to land a company, because that's what your community needs, right? And as long as we continue, to your analogy, step up to the plate, and we continue to promote our communities and try to get those deals, eventually they're going to come in. And I think that we have seen in the last several years, like I said, with the Biden administration, and I believe we're going to see it with the Trump administration as well, more opportunities for all of our communities to try to create those living wage jobs that make it easier to go on vacation with your family or buy those Christmas presents, right? So it's really exciting time. Now, I do want to ask you about yourself a little bit? Because
Yeah,
I know it's a little
sure.
bit departure. We talk a lot about success and policies, but I have very rarely met someone who said, "Hey, I graduated high school. I'm going to college for economic development. This is going to be my future career," right? It's usually not that way. So, what is your background? How did you get into economic development?
Well, hi, I'm Marvin J. Price, and I went to school for economic development. You finally met.
Wow, unicorn.
Yeah. So, I am from Birmingham, Alabama. You probably could tell I was from the South because of the Southern charm in my voice for
Oh,
all
yes.
the podcast listeners. So I went to the University of Montevallo, a small liberal arts college. Love them, and I decided my senior year was during the Great Recession in 2008, 2009, and I, like most college kids, had no idea what I wanted to do with a political science degree. So during my Christmas break, I Googled jobs you can do with a political science degree, and I made it all the way to the bottom of urban and regional planning. And if you go on the urban and regional planning, if you Google it, it takes you to the national website. And I started looking at things you can do in urban and regional planning. And one of the first things you see is economic development. So I Googled economic development, and it took me to, I think it was SEDC's website. And it was like this old looking brochure about, do you want to be a leader? And I was like, yeah. Do you want to change the community? I was like, yeah. Do you want to make an impact? I was like, yeah, it was like one of those like army
That's me.
brochures or something. And it was like,
Yeah.
that's me. So I ended up going to Auburn University, War Eagle, to anyone out there, to Auburn University to get my master's in community planning with a concentration in economic development. So going to school and truly knowing that I want to work in economic development, I want to recruit companies, I want to do all of these things. I took classes on existing industry, marketing and development, site development. All of those things are like commonplace to me. So coming out and going into work, that was commonplace knowledge to me. So very fortunate and super excited. There's some great colleges and universities with economic development degrees now is a little bit more commonplace, but truly lucky to have found this profession.
That's fantastic. As I said, you are the unicorn. Typically on this podcast, people take a bit of a more wandering road to end up in this profession. And quite frankly, it sounds like it was your own research that helped you to have that discovery, because it's not really a profession that guidance counselors are talking to people about, right?
Yeah,
But maybe we
I
need to
tell it,
change that.
yeah, I tell everyone that it's kind of like working in the mob or something. Like
Closely
we're
held secret.
Yeah, it's kind of like you don't talk about, or what is that saying in Fight Club, the movie?
Yeah, you
No
don't
one,
talk about Fight Club?
yeah, you don't talk about Fight Club with anyone that's not in Fight Club. So
Right.
in economic development, I don't talk about projects with people that are not in economic development. So I don't
Sure.
randomly tell someone, hey, we're working on Project Batman and it's 25 jobs and $30 million. You don't
Sure.
have that conversation with somebody randomly because they make you sign NDAs. So it's
Sure.
always when my family, they'll ask, what did you do today? It's like I had meetings about what? I can't tell you. It's so
Sure.
funny, right?
Right.
But and once you get into economic development, again, it's like the mob. You don't get out. It's a profession that it locks their teeth in you, and it's I don't know what I would do if I wasn't doing economic development.
Mhm.
Like you get to change your community, you get to learn so much and be so ingratiated into the place that you live because you're selling it every day. You know
Right.
about all the great lunch spots. You know about when something new is coming to town. You feel a sense of pride.
Hmm.
And I just can't I don't I think this is one of the greatest professions in the world.
Well, I'm biased, but I would have to agree. At Golden Shovel, we have over 300 clients, and we work specifically and only in economic development. And we just had our annual meeting as a company, and that was what everyone was saying. I just love what I do because I can see the impact. And we work with
Yeah.
communities over periods of years. We have a 95% retention rate. So we have the benefit of very often being that I cannot speak, continuity. You guys, I can't speak today. We can see economic development directors come and go sometimes and be that common thread, right, throughout
Yeah.
a community's history, and being able to look back and remember, hey, when we first started working with this community, they didn't have sewer capacity, and now they've just landed a thousand person creating jobs, millions of investment, what have
Yeah.
you. And just seeing that transformation over time is incredibly rewarding. And I personally feel it's a lot more rewarding than something that's more transactional, right? Because you're seeing that long-term impact.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's always interesting when you walk into a facility or when you're driving somewhere. I've been in the grocery store and I will see someone with a shirt with a logo of a company that I worked with, or to have a moment where someone is asked, I'm sorry, but to know that when I'm using Gillette deodorant, it's made right up the road, right?
Right.
To know that when I took some NyQuil when I wasn't feeling well, hey, somebody made that in my community, right? So it's those little senses of pride that you take in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Well, hey, we have reached the end of our podcast, which means it is time to shift into our shovel toss game.
Okay,
And
let's go.
in case you're not familiar, I am going to pull out the stopwatch here on my cell phone, and we're going to see how many of these rapid fire questions you can answer in 1 minute, and they have nothing to do with economic development.
All right, I love it. Let's go. I'm when you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
All right, this is Marvin Price in 1 minute, you guys. First question, what was your first car?
Mazda Protege.
Favorite dessert?
Strawberry ice cream.
If you could be a superhero, who would you be?
Superman.
Book you are reading right now?
48 Laws of Power.
Favorite vacation destination?
It would have to be Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina.
Top of your bucket list?
Go to the Virgin Islands.
Go-to song?
I used to have Nothing by Young Jeezy.
Something you can't live without?
God. And my
What
French
you-
Bulldog.
What you wish you would have known when you started your career?
That is all going to work out.
Favorite movie?
Mr. Brooks.
Funniest childhood outfit?
My mom dressed me up as Robin Hood for some kind of program at school. Green tights. Never a good idea.
Never a good idea. All right, what do you want to be remembered for?
Caring about people in the communities that I serve.
Love it. So you answered 14 questions. Most people only get to 9. So I would say Marvin Price is prepared.
Let's
Good
go.
job. All right. Well, I do again really appreciate you coming on today and sharing your insight into staying the course, really. I mean, I feel like if one word were to sum up our conversation and what's happening in the community, for me, it came across as faith. You guys made it really clear in Greensboro that you believed in yourself, that you got everyone to come and believe in your vision, and it's paid off. So congratulations.
Well, thank you so much. And if there was one last thing I could say to the economic developers, new, old, seasoned in their profession, I would just remind them that you're doing a good job, a noble job, and never forget that. And truly, there is a tribe of economic developers across this country that are going through the exact same problems that you're dealing with. So please reach out and build that network, because there may be someone that has encountered that problem and has an amazing idea that can solve it for you and your community. So community is what you need in economic development.
Agreed. Very good words of wisdom. Well, thank you so much. We look forward to seeing what happens in Greensboro next.
Stay tuned.
Thank you, Bethany and Marvin. Golden Shovel has a lot of great thought leadership content out there this quarter. Q1, as many of you may know, is our focus is on rural America. So earlier this year, we had a conversation with Brett Christensen from Minnesota Telecom Alliance on the future of rural telecom and broadband. We have a webinar coming up on March 11th, so make sure you register for that with Bethany. Winning for Rural America, Strategies Driving Growth in Small Communities. Also, as you may have received a white paper to download in your inbox on rural America as well. And also we had another webinar a couple weeks ago, our annual 10 key trends for economic development websites with Aaron and our friends at GIS Planning. And the recording of that webinar is found at the Resource Learning Center at goldenshovelagency.com. Actually, all of our webinar content, all of our podcasts, and all of our ebooks are all there for you in that learning center for with the ability to download. So if there is something, a new initiative coming up and you're looking for a little bit more research material, chances are there might be something in our Resource Learning Center. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Shovel Talk. I am Darren, and we'll see you next time.